Work was everything to Travis. All he thought about was building a great company. He often wouldn't wash his clothes, see his friends. He'd be working all hours of the day on growing Uber. And he expected the same of his employees. In his view, being at Uber wasn't a job, it was a mission. Employees often kept working even after they went home. There's reports that some staff were seeing therapists to deal with the burnout and intensity of the job. Although, ironically, many of them missed their appointments due to being too busy at work. But there were several reasons Uber employees gave so much to the job. One of them was that Travis always positioned Uber as us versus them. Travis loved the book The Art of War, and he created a siege mentality within the company, that it was Uber against the world, that they were constantly in an existential fight. But it wasn't just that. Travis is also a showman and a very charismatic leader. So when he told you that you were part of this important, world-changing mission, you believed him. And he believed it himself. They all felt that the 12-hour workdays would be worth it in the end. They'd be part of history, and eventually get a big payout. Employees at Uber also loved that Travis trusted them with a lot of power to make big decisions without needing approval. Travis basically wanted an army of young and hungry entrepreneurs, and he would assign each of them to a different city and tell them to go and make Uber a success there, using whatever tactics or budget they deemed necessary. This is how Uber was able to act so fast. It wasn't structured like a normal big bureaucratic organization. Travis had all these small teams, each focused on conquering individual cities. This worked incredibly well sometimes, but it also meant that teams at Uber weren't just fighting competitors. They were fighting against each other internally, and occasionally even backstabbing each other, since they were acting as individual teams rather than one united company. Now, I realize so far I've used a lot of war and battle language when talking about Uber, but that's because that's how Travis saw it himself. Business was war, and whilst this attitude was responsible for a lot of Uber's growth, it was also the reason for a lot of Uber's controversies and the competitive dog-eat-dog alpha culture they ended up creating. However, Uber also embodied the mantra, work hard, play hard. It was an Uber tradition to throw a huge party for hitting targets, and Travis would fly employees all around the world for various celebrations. One particularly infamous Uber party was their X to the X event, hosted in Las Vegas, which cost the company around $25 million. Each employee was given a prepaid credit card filled with money to spend, and Travis even got Beyoncé to perform at the event. Yeah, quite a contrast to your traditional work party. In fact, Travis announced Beyoncé and her husband Jay-Z were now investors in Uber, although technically, Travis had simply given them stock for attending the event. But still, for Uber's young workforce, it was surreal to be partying with global celebrities. Unfortunately, the exciting culture of Uber also had a much darker side, and there was one incident in particular which really set in motion Travis's ultimate downfall. But before we get to that, it's important to acknowledge that in the early days of Uber, saying you worked there was something to brag about. It was only as the years went by and public sentiment towards the company changed that the opinions of their own employees started to change as well. Some employees quit completely, saddened by what the company had become and all the controversy and scandals that surrounded it. And one of Uber's biggest scandals that caused a lot of that was when a past employee called Susan Fowler accused the company of systematic sexual misconduct. Susan said that her boss had sexually harassed her, but that HR had dismissed the allegations because it was his first offense and he was a valuable part of the team. However, it was later revealed that this was not the first accusation of sexual harassment against this employee, and Uber had frequently ignored the claims against him. When this information became public, other Uber employees started speaking up about the misogyny, harassment, and abuse they'd faced from senior employees at Uber. The floodgates were open, and all the details of Uber's misconduct and toxic culture became very public. To Travis's credit, he acted quickly and ordered an independent investigation into the company's culture. When they finished, they compiled a report with their findings. It contained hundreds of allegations of physical violence, sexual assault, and many other accusations made by current and former Uber employees. It was far worse than Travis could have imagined. Just reading the report was sickening. Uber's culture had become toxic, and until now, a lot of it had been swept under the carpet. Once again, Travis sprung into action, and Uber held a company-wide meeting where all of the Uber board were on stage to discuss how they could improve Uber's culture. It was notable that at the time, there was only one woman on the board, Ariana Huffington. She spoke on stage to the Uber employees, reassuring them that she'd be focusing on addressing the issues of sexism within Uber's culture. She also pointed out that now that there was one woman on the board, it would likely mean there would soon be a second female board member as well. However, at that very moment, one of the male board members interrupted her and said,
"Actually, what it shows is as much likely to be more talking."
The room fell silent, in the middle of a company-wide presentation that was meant to show everyone that Uber was addressing its issues with sexism. One of the male board members had just made a sexist joke about women talking too much. Seriously, that was real leaked audio you just heard. Unsurprisingly, this story made yet more controversial headlines for Uber, and to many people, it proved that Uber's culture problems started at the very top of the company. It also didn't help that in a GQ profile, Travis had previously told a reporter that he called Uber Boober, because attracting women was so much easier now that he was the CEO of a big company. Uber had also had to apologize a few years before that for running a promotion in France to advertise free rides from incredibly hot chicks. It genuinely seemed that Uber was simply bouncing from one controversy to another, and each incident just chipped away at Uber's reputation a little further. Travis was already a tense person, but the pressure and stress of everything going on left him feeling suffocated. At one point, it's reported that Travis collapsed on all fours and broke down, muttering, "I'm terrible." And in the middle of all of this chaos surrounding Uber, the lawsuits, the sexism, the negative media attention, everything, Travis then got a call that his parents had been involved in a freak boating accident, which had hospitalized his father and killed his mother. Shortly after this, in June 2017, Travis announced he was taking a leave of absence from Uber to work on himself, and he vowed that when he returned, he would be a better leader and a better person. But little did Travis know, he would never be coming back.